And Todd Zolecki does a great job for us. He's on all throughout the year, covers his team well. All right, Todd, let's first, I'll give you a big question, a broad question, and you answer it. In the history of the Phillies, last year they weren't supposed to win. All right, you want to go to the Game 5 against St. Louis when, Howard tore his Achilles and they scored a run in the first inning, the Cardinals, and won with Carpenter over Halladay? Maybe that's close. I don't even think so. This is, for the history of the franchise, this is the worst loss they've ever had. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's their first Game 7 in franchise history. I mean, the Phillies have been playing baseball since 1883. The only thing that could come remotely close would be how the Phillies blew a 6-game lead with like 12 games to go in 1964. Phillies fans still talk about that collapse. But you're talking about a postseason series. To come to Philadelphia up 3-2 against the Diamondbacks and lose 2 games at home. And remember, the whole narrative all postseason, this postseason, last season, was the Phillies cannot lose at home. They have such a massive home field advantage. And to see them lose these 2 games, I think it's devastating, because there's no guarantee you get back here next year. And I think everybody in Philadelphia, from the clubhouse, from the front office, to fans, to everybody, like I said, around the country, thought that this team was not only going to win this series, but they thought that they were going to win the World Series.
100%. I was one who thought that. But this is over now, the home field. That's finished forever. They lost 2 games last year to Houston in the World Series with no hit in Game 4 when they were 2 games to 1 up, and they lost Game 5, and then they lose 2 games here. So this home field deal at Citizens Bank is gone for good. I don't want to hear another word about their home field advantage, because they had 4 chances essentially to win 1 series and win both series, and they couldn't do it either time. All right, who is the... You want to say it's Kimbrel? I hated Trey Turner's at-bats there the other day. Who is taking the most responsibility from a fan perspective as far as this loss is concerned? Let's discuss that.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Kimbrel, his performance in Games 3 and 4. The Phillies win one of those games. Say he just loses one of those games. You win the other one, you win the series in 5, and now the Phillies are going to the World Series. So Kimbrel's taking a lot of heat, but I think you're getting some talk about, you mentioned Trey Turner. Think about this, Chris. He was hitting .500 through the entire postseason. Through Game 2 of the NLCS, he finished 2 for 19. Nick Castellanos became the second player in postseason history to hit 5 home runs in a 3-game span. The other one was Reggie Jackson, of course, in the World Series. Nick finished the NLCS 0 for 23 with 11 strikeouts. So you have 2 of their 9-figure players that really struggled in those final 5 games. And, they needed to do better, because the Diamondbacks had a very simple game plan. We're not going to throw strikes to Bryce Harper. And if we do, it's probably going to be a mistake. And we're not going to throw strikes to Kyle Schwarber. And if we do, it's probably going to be a mistake. And you saw those guys not get a lot of pitches to hit down the stretch, get a lot of walks, not get a lot of pitches to hit. And I think that's why they lost.
1 for 20, the 3 of them in the lineup the last 2 days, Schwarber, Harper, right, and Turner. Let's not forget that, with a ton of strikeouts. But again, I don't want to kill Harper and Schwarber. Turner had a good postseason. He was terrible the other night. 2 awful at-bats. Think about this for a second, Todd. He doesn't get that bunt down. He tried 1 time. A lousy bunt. Schwarber gets the leadoff double. He gets him to third base to get the game tied. That was a huge double in that spot. And he has a terrible at-bat. And then he swings at 2 horrific pitches in the bottom of the 7th inning when the Diamondbacks are reeling after 2 on and 1 out. He's got Harper up next. And Ginkel's a good reliever. Good, you give the guy all the credit in the world. I'm not knocking. Phenomenal. Right. But Turner's got to give you a better at-bat with the season on the line. Those 2 at-bats for him in the last 2 days. Or in Game 7 was awful. Let's discuss that. Go ahead.
Yeah, he really went cold, and you saw this a little bit earlier in the season. It almost looked like, the first half version of Trey Turner. You saw a lot of that when he was really pressing the first half of the season. He got off to such a poor start. You just saw a lot of, 3 swings and you're out, some, swinging at pitches out of the zone, and then, popping up a ball to shallow center field to get himself out of the at bat. So you did see that toward the end. And, going back to Nick Castellanos as well, he said basically he was pressing at the end. He said, he had a big at-bat late in that game with runners on base, didn't do anything. And he said, I honestly was just thinking so badly about how I needed to get the runner in. I wasn't even thinking about the type of pitch and where the pitch was going. I was just swinging because I wanted to do so bad. And it's interesting to hear because the Phillies were supposed to have the advantage at home, but I think they felt the pressure once the 84-win Diamondbacks forced a Game 7. I think that all the pressure shifted to the Phillies.
100% right. Yeah, that game. I knew Game 7 would be dangerous. Now, where do they go from here? I mean, listen, half the players, they're all signed, so you're not trading anybody. They do have to make a decision on Nola, which would be interesting to see what they do there. They got to make a decision of whether Rojas is their center fielder for the future. I'm not sure where they feel there. The infield, I put Harper back in right, I'm assuming, in Castellanos. I don't know what they're going to do in a couple of figurations where he plays defense. Give me a little rundown on 2000. It's a little early. They just lost.
Right. But
give me a little feel of the offseason. Let me hear. Go ahead.
So I think the number one priority is Aaron Nola. Do you re-sign Aaron Nola? The Phillies thought they were going to sign him to a contract extension in spring training, but the Nola side was looking for a big number, maybe a Steven Strasburg type number. $225, $250 million contract. And based off the way Aaron Nola has pitched the last 6 seasons, you can make a very good argument that he deserves to be paid amongst the best pitchers in baseball. So, based off of the way Nola pitched in the postseason, he had that poor game in Game 6 of the NLCS, but he pitched very well. He's probably going to get a big payday. Now, if the Phillies decide they cannot stomach a $200 million contract for Aaron Nola or whatever somebody might want to give him, you need to replace him. And you can't just replace him with a middle of the rotation guy. I think you need to replace him with somebody comparable. The problem is that there's not a lot of starting pitching depth in the free agent market. You have Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery. What do you do there? So do you look to make a trade? Maybe the Brewers want to trade Corbin Burns. Maybe Tyler Glasnow in Tampa Bay gets traded. You can look at one of those two guys. But to me, that's the number one priority. And then you start going, where's Bryce Harper going to play? Is he going to play first base? Is he going to play right field? If he plays right field, that kind of complicates things because, does Nick Castellanos move to left? What happens to Brandon Marsh? There's some more moving pieces there. Things kind of become constricted in the outfield. If he plays first base, though, that means Rhys Hoskins does not come back, and it will be interesting to see what they want to do with Rhys Hoskins going forward.
Yeah, it's a very interesting scenario, but psychologically, Todd, that's the first thing they got to handle. You get this far 2 years in a row. Last year, they won a pennant. Nobody's arguing with the Phillies. 87 wins, tremendous job. They get a pass last year. This year, they don't. Nobody in America cares that they beat the Atlanta Braves. I can care less. The baseball world doesn't care. The Brave fan cares, but let the Braves worry about that. From a Philly perspective, the Brave series means absolutely zero. And that is going to be very, very difficult for them to swallow for the next 4 months. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. They beat the Braves the last 2 years, but they expected to win the World Series. And that's why. So the feeling, Chris, after Game 6 of the World Series last year was, we were 2 wins away. But, man, we really had a great postseason. We're going to learn from this. This is a great experience for us. The feeling in that clubhouse after Game 7 was, wow, we blew a tremendous opportunity because there are no guarantees in baseball, as you know. You mentioned Game 5 of the 2011 NLDS. The Phillies were such a better team than the Cardinals, got bounced out early. You just talked about the Braves. The Braves were a better regular season team. They got bounced early by the Phillies. So there's no guarantee that the Phillies get back in this position this year. So they just, you could tell when they left the clubhouse, they're like, wow, we cannot believe we are not going to the World Series because we believe we were the better team. But they did not play like the better team those last 2 games.
They sure didn't, and that's what baseball, that's why it's great in this postseason. And America agrees with you about we all thought the Phillies were better. Todd, great job. Always a pleasure. I'm sure we'll talk sometime in the wintertime. Thanks for a couple minutes today.
Thank you.